kids. There's another form of reform math in the math standards, and it has to do with geometry. They introduced geometry a lot younger, which is fine. But the problem with the geometry in the standards is that it is transformational geometry. We learned Euclidean geometry. Transformational geometry has failed internationally every time they've tried to use it. And that's what Dr. Milgram was talking about when he referenced the geometry. Transformational geometry uses a mirrored abstract approach to geometry. Now, the ELA. ELA stands for English Language Arts. That's the second piece of the standards. Some of the issues we have with it have to do with the concentration on informational text. The Common Core State Standards call for a gradual increase starting at 50% up to 70% informational text in lieu of established literature. This is a huge shift in mainstream public education because our English teachers have always been taught and trained to teach English from a literature perspective. Now we're moving to informational text, which has to do with current event publications and manuals. Again, remember, this is a workforce. This is an industrial model of education, and it's corporate-driven. So these corporate entities are taking what they want their workforce to know when they graduate, and they're backing those skills up all the way down to kindergarten. So instead of our K through 12 system having an immersion and an emphasis, a higher concentration in literature, fiction, the classics, we're moving away from that and giving just a little bit of that, and now we're really focusing on informational text. They argue that that teaches critical thinking, but that's simply not true, and that's not what the research suggests. The research suggests that established literature teaches critical thinking because it uses complex vocabulary. It introduces multiple characters. It takes you to another place, another time, other cultures. And it asks the reader to identify with those characters. And you begin to question, how would I deal with this situation if I was presented with it? Or what might my life be like if I was in this person's shoes? That's how you get critical thinking. Informational text argues a point. Informational text seeks to convince the reader of an idea. It trains an idea. It doesn't teach critical thinking. This is a very slippery slope for K through 12 education. They want our children to read manuals. There's a list that I encourage everyone to get online and read, and it's called the Common Core State Standards Exemplar Reading List. This is the exemplar reading list. Now, the exemplar reading list is not mandatory. It's a suggested list of things to incorporate for educators as they are aligning their materials to the Common Core State Standards. One of the common themes you'll see from me in this presentation is that as parents, we feel it is critical to take into account the intentions, the philosophies, and the ideas of the people who are bringing this, right? Because our children are in their care in a classroom for 6 to 8 hours a day. The teachers are teaching what's coming from these people who provide this information. What do they believe? What is their philosophy? What are their ideas? Where are they taking us? Well, there's about 5 things on this list that tell us a lot about who these people are. The first one is called The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. That's not new to high school education. It's recommended for 10th graders on that list. Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye has been around for a while, and I've talked to other people in my age group, I'm 37, that say they remember reading that in high school. I never read it, but I went to private school. That book takes the reader to the perspective of an incestual child molester. And it asks the reader to identify with that person. I'm choosing my words carefully because there's a little one in the room. It has very explicit language in it. And at Arkansas Against Common Core, we feel that that is inappropriate for 10th grade exemplar reading and should not be on the suggestion list. Can our teachers avoid it? Sure they can. But again, this tells you about the people who are pushing this. The second way, Dreaming in Cuban. Again, explicit, reads like a horror Newsweek or some media publication about the national health care crisis. Exemplar reading for 12th grade education. By the time they get to 12th grade, they're at a 70% concentration. Starts at 50, increases until they graduate.